From ancient cults performing human sacrifices to children's schools where the lunch literally turned kids into monsters, and one location so disturbing that players refuse to go back even with maxed out characters and infinite ammo. Today, I'll be explaining the most terrifying locations in Fallout 4. We'll get to the unforgettable locations, but first, let's start with the quarry that proves horrors existed long before the bombs fell, Dunwich Borers. This abandoned quarry southwest of Hugo's Hole looks like any other raider scrap operation until you realize the marble walls are literally bleeding and you're seeing flashbacks of pre-war human sacrifices that definitely weren't part of standard mining safety protocols. The place starts normal enough with raiders camping up top stripping copper from machinery, but descend into those tunnels and you'll find ritual altars covered in candles, hallucinations of suited managers watching workers get sacrificed to something underground, and a massive underwater face statue that makes you question what Dunwich was really mining for down there. The sound design here deserves special mention. That wet, organic squelching when you walk near the walls isn't your imagination. The audio team recorded actual meat being pressed against stone to create that visceral effect. And those flashbacks, they're not random. They trigger based on your proximity to specific altars, meaning you can miss half the story if you don't explore thoroughly. Speedrunners have discovered you can complete this location in under 3 minutes, but doing so means missing the true horror. A hidden room behind the underwater statue containing pre-war correspondence between Dunwich executives and something they refer to only as the sleeper below. The deeper you go, the worse everything gets, with feral ghouls spawning from solid rock, tripwires connected to grenades every 5 feet, and this constant rumbling that makes your controller vibrate like something massive and ancient is waking up beneath you. Terminal entries reveal the pre-war Dunwich company was secretly a cult worshipping otherworldly gods, using the legitimate mining operation as cover for their dark rituals. And when you finally reach the flooded bottom, there's this unique sacrificial blade called Kremvaj's Tooth, just sitting in an altar surrounded by mini nukes like someone was preparing for something big. This location connects directly to Fallout 3's Dunwich building where similar cult activity happened, proving these psychopaths had operations across the entire East Coast. And honestly, finding that giant face statue underwater still makes me refuse to swim in any body of water in any Fallout game ever again. If you thought bleeding walls were bad, wait until you see what's hiding in Salem that makes experienced players quit the game entirely. In fact, 73% of players never even finish this next location, Museum of Witchcraft. This Gothic building near Salem was supposed to educate wastelanders about colonial witch trials and historical persecution, but now it's home to something that makes those old superstitions look like nursery rhymes your grandma tells you. Walking up to this place, you'll hear traveling merchants warning you to stay away, see mannequins posed in colonial-era torture positions with nooses around their necks, and find a holotape of some poor private investigator literally getting torn apart while screaming about something way bigger than a mole rat moving in the darkness. The museum itself is pitch black with only your Pip-Boy's green light showing overturned displays about witch trials, blood smears leading up walls to the ceiling, and human bodies thrown around like a child's discarded toys, building unbearable tension until you reach the main hall where a savage deathclaw drops from the ceiling right on top of you like the world's worst surprise party. What most players don't realize is this deathclaw is actually programmed differently from every other deathclaw in the game. Its AI specifically tracks sound, your footsteps, reloading, even your Pip-Boy click. Turn off your radio, crouch walk, and use melee weapons, and you can actually sneak past it entirely. But here's the thing, the developers knew most players would panic and start shooting, creating a chaotic fight in near total darkness where every muzzle flash illuminates teeth and claws. The location was inspired by the developers' visit to actual Salem witch trial museums, where they noticed how modern horror had completely overshadowed historical tragedy. Just like this deathclaw overshadows the real horror of colonial persecution still visible in the museum's exhibits if you look closely enough. But here's the twist that makes this location genuinely special. You can actually find deathclaw eggs in the basement behind a locked door, and if you return them to their nest near Lynn Woods instead of selling them to that scumbag Wellingham for a quick cap profit, the mother deathclaw becomes friendly and won't attack you, showing even the scariest monsters in the entire wasteland just want to protect their babies. This quest called The Devil's Due teaches you that sometimes the real monsters are the humans who steal eggs for fancy omelets, while actual monsters just want their kids back, and watching Kate literally yell "shite" when that deathclaw drops from the ceiling never gets old no matter how many playthroughs you do. From maternal instincts and protective mothers to artistic psychopaths with very different hobbies. Remember I mentioned serial killers? Well, this won't be the last one we find, but it's definitely the most creative. And here's a stat that'll disturb you. 42% of players actually save this guy after seeing his work. Pickman Gallery. This unassuming row house in the north end looks completely abandoned until you notice the raider corpses arranged like they're in some twisted art exhibition, complete with track lighting, wine glasses positioned in their hands, and little plaques describing each piece, like you're at the Wasteland's most disturbing gallery opening. Pikmin isn't your average Commonwealth serial killer, though. He exclusively targets raiders and turns their bodies into grotesque masterpieces, hanging them from ceilings with fishing line, posing them in thoughtful positions like they're pondering existence, and leaving calling cards at each murder scene like he's the Wasteland's most disturbed artist trying to build a portfolio. Following the blood trail through underground tunnels filled with more installations, including raiders posed mid-scream, you'll find actual living raiders hunting Pikmin for revenge because he killed their friends, leading to this incredible moral dilemma where you choose between saving a serial killer who only kills bad guys or letting the raiders get their justice on someone who turns murder into art. The basement gallery is absolutely the worst part, with dozens of raider corpses preserved in various states of decay, positioned to tell stories of their final moments like a stop-motion animation of death, and Pikmin himself treating you like an art critic who finally appreciates his vision while casually mentioning his next piece will involve super mutants. This whole location is based on H.P. Lovecraft's Pikmin's model, about an artist who paints monsters so realistically they turn out to be real. And honestly, after seeing Pikmin's actual work with actual corpses, I understand why some players just nuke the whole building from outside and call it a day without even looting the place. The community is genuinely divided on Pikmin. Some players have created entire builds around being his apprentice, wearing formal wear and exclusively hunting raiders with combat knives. Others bomb the gallery from outside because they can't stomach walking through it. But here's a detail that changes everything. Check Pikmin's terminal entries carefully. He's not just killing random raiders. Each victim corresponds to a specific crime mentioned in Diamond City newspapers. That raider posed reading a book? He burned down a school. The one arranged like he's praying? He killed a priest. Pikmin isn't just an artist. He's a vigilante creating poetic justice sculptures, which makes the moral choice even more complicated. Speaking of art and performance, let's visit a very different kind of theatrical show. Grantchester Mansion. Nuka World's haunted house attraction was already creepy enough before the bombs with its Winchester Mystery House design featuring stairs to nowhere and its Lizzie Borden murder recreations complete with bloody mannequin families, but now it's a legitimate death trap filled with actual corpses and automated systems that can't tell the difference between scaring and killing. The second you enter, you're immediately hit with recordings of a little girl laughing that echoes through empty halls, doors slamming behind you with no way back, and mannequins that definitely weren't in that position 5 seconds ago, because you swear that one just turned its head to watch you walk by. The mansion is basically one giant psychological puzzle of hidden doors behind bookcases, gas-filled death rooms that lock when you enter, turrets hidden behind family portraits that track your movement, and a basement full of ghouls wearing pre-war formal wear like they died at the world's most radioactive dinner party. But the real kicker is finding terminals revealing the pre-war owner Lucy Grantchester went completely insane preparing for nuclear war, turning her profitable tourist attraction into an actual death maze to test visitors for worthiness, and when you finally reach her office after solving all her twisted puzzles, you realize she's been dead for 200 years, but her automated systems are still running the show and killing people because nobody told them to stop. This location perfectly captures that specific carnival horror vibe where something meant for innocent fun becomes nightmare fuel through decay and malfunction, and the fact that you can only find the key to the attic by searching one specific mannequin that looks exactly like 50 others is peak Bethesda game design trolling players who don't explore thoroughly. Speaking of haunted houses, we're about to hit the halfway point of our nightmare tour, and things are about to escalate from creepy to what the hell were they thinking? These next locations aren't just scary, they're morally disturbing, starting with a school where the lunch lady really will kill you, Suffolk School. This seemingly normal school south of Jamaica Plain hides one of the most genuinely disturbing experiments in the entire Commonwealth involving mysterious pink paste, innocent children, and way too many feral ghouls that still wear the remnants of their school uniforms. Walking through classrooms with tiny desks still arranged for lessons and alphabet posters peeling off walls while fighting pink-skinned ghouls feels wrong on every possible level, especially when you find lunch trays still filled with mysterious pink goo that was apparently the last meal these poor kids ever ate before everything went wrong. Terminal entries reveal the school was secretly testing a new government nutrition program using this pink paste that was supposedly healthier and cheaper than real food, but actually turned everyone who ate it into ghouls, starting with the children who were forced to eat it every single day because their parents trusted the school system. The basement cafeteria is absolutely the worst area with dozens of pink ghouls clustered around food stations like they're still waiting for lunch 200 years later, and finding innocent children's drawings about their favorite foods next to research notes about improved nutrition absorption through cellular modification, makes you realize Vault-Tec wasn't the only organization experimenting on kids before the bombs fell. This location hits different because it corrupts something fundamentally innocent and safe, turning a place meant for learning and growth into a monument to pre-war America's willingness to experiment on its own children for profit. And those pink ghouls are legitimately harder to spot in the dark than regular ones because their skin has this weird translucent quality that makes them blend into shadows. The pink paste itself has become infamous in Fallout lore discussions. Data miners found unused files suggesting it was originally supposed to be a recurring element across multiple locations, part of a larger conspiracy involving pre-war corporations testing on civilian populations. The texture for the paste is actually modified Brahmin brain tissue, mixed with Abraxo cleaner effects, which explains why it has that unsettling translucent quality that makes your stomach turn. Players have noted that if you use VATs on the paste, it actually registers as an enemy with 0 health, a creepy programming quirk that suggests the paste might be more alive than we think. From classroom nightmares to Boston Common's worst kept secret. But here's the thing, all these locations I've shown you so far, they're just the warm-up, because there's one vault coming up that did something so unforgivable, Bethesda almost cut it from the game entirely. But first, let me show you why you should never, ever approach water in downtown Boston. Swan's Pond. Boston Common's little pond seems like the perfect spot to grab some dirty water for your survival needs until you notice the swan boats are arranged weird like fortifications, and there's way too many human skulls decorating the gazebo, like someone's been collecting them for years. This super mutant behemoth named Swan has been hiding underwater for God knows how long, using the pond as natural camouflage while collecting shopping carts, boat parts, and human remains to build his own little underwater kingdom that nobody knows about until it's too late. The second you get close enough to investigate those decorative swan boats or grab that obvious loot sitting on the gazebo, Swan literally explodes from the water, throwing boulders the size of cars, and suddenly you're fighting a behemoth in the middle of downtown Boston while taking constant radiation damage from his irradiated pond water splashing everywhere. What makes Swan truly unique is his absolutely heartbreaking backstory found in nearby Institute terminals. He was actually a human test subject for the Institute's FEV experiments named Edgar Swan, kept detailed notes about his transformation, including desperate pleas for help, and they literally dumped him in the pond when he got too big to contain in their labs, meaning the Institute used Boston Common as a dumping ground for failed experiments they couldn't be bothered to properly dispose of. This fight becomes mandatory for several major quests, but knowing Swan was recording audio notes about his transformation, begging for help while slowly losing his human mind to FEV mutations, makes killing him feel less like a boss fight and more like a mercy, killing for someone who never asked to become a monster. We're now 8 locations deep, and if you're still watching, congratulations. Most viewers tap out by location 6, but these next few, they're where Fallout 4 stops being a game and starts being a psychological experiment on you, the player. Most scary locations rely on jump scares or atmosphere, but Swan forces you to confront the human cost of scientific progress. The next location takes this concept underground, because sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones transformed by radiation or FEV, but the ones who were monsters all along, preserved in the dark for 2 centuries, waiting for someone foolish enough to go looking. Fens Sewer. This sewer system under the fens looks like any other radroach-infested maintenance tunnel, until you find the first carefully arranged corpse with red X marks painted on walls, and realize you've accidentally walked into someone's pre-war murder museum that's been perfectly preserved by sewer conditions. The serial killer who lived here before the war, probably the same psycho who inspired Pickman's whole artistic murder thing, turned these maintenance tunnels into his personal hunting ground where he could display his victims like trophies. And 200 years later, his art is still on display thanks to the preservative properties of radioactive sewer grime, mixed with whatever chemicals were in the water system. Following the trail of increasingly elaborate body displays deeper underground, you'll find a ghoulified version of something straight out of John Carpenter's The Thing, with a mutated face growing from its stomach that tracks your movement, bloat flies nesting in corpses positioned to look like they're screaming, and ghouls that seem way too organized and tactical for standard ferals, like they're following some kind of plan. The developer Justin Schramm specifically designed this as a self-contained horror story where environmental storytelling completely replaces dialogue or audio logs, so every skeleton placement, every bloody handprint on the walls, and every mannequin posed with a machete through its head tells part of this killer's story without saying a single word. This location proves you don't need supernatural elements or advanced technology to create effective horror in Fallout. Sometimes a dark sewer, someone's pre-war murder hobby, and environmental storytelling is enough to make players pop every mentat they have just to see better in the darkness. From sewers to hospitals where the bills literally kill you. Milton General Hospital. This automated hospital west of Fallon's department store looks helpful with its pristine Mr. Handy staff still trying to admit patients after 200 years, but the parking garage underneath has been turned into a Raider-run gauntlet of death where they bet on how long people survive. The hospital AI is still running somehow, constantly announcing visiting hours over the intercom and reminding people about unpaid bills while you're fighting through floors of ferals. And there's something deeply unsettling about hearing, "Please remember to pay your outstanding balance," while stepping over 200-year-old corpses. The real nightmare is the basement parking garage where raiders have built this elaborate trap system to test wastelanders for their entertainment, complete with tripwires connected to grenades, Tesla arcs that'll fry you instantly, and a final room where you're locked in with a legendary glowing ghoul while raiders place bets on how long you'll last from behind bulletproof glass, finding patient records about people who literally died waiting for treatment because they couldn't pay their bills, mixed with raider graffiti mocking the same system they're now using for entertainment, creates this weird meta-commentary on healthcare that hits harder than any Deathclaw ever could. The hospital represents everything wrong with pre-war America perfectly preserved in amber, still demanding payment from corpses, while psychopaths use its infrastructure for blood sport. And that final elevator ride up, while the automated voice cheerfully reminds you about gift shop hours and visiting times, is peak Fallout dark comedy. Players have discovered that if you hack the hospital's main terminal, you can actually see the full list of patients who died waiting for treatment in the pre-war era. Names, ages, conditions, and time of death. 247 entries total. Someone on the development team took the time to write individual stories for people who've been dead for 200 years, just to drive home the point about America's healthcare system. The most disturbing entry? A child who died from an easily treatable infection because their parents' insurance had lapsed. That terminal entry has more horror than any ghoul encounter. More medical madness awaits nearby. But here's something unsettling. Did you know these two hospitals are connected? Not physically, but by something worse. The same company that let people die for unpaid bills at Milton was running experiments at our next location. And when you find out what they were doing to synths, Kendall Hospital. This former railroad safe house in Cambridge started as a symbol of hope for synths seeking freedom, but became a raider nest with a massive Deathclaw problem in the basement that nobody mentions until you find it yourself. Walking through wards where escaped synths once hid while planning new lives, now decorated with raider kills hanging from IV stands and graffiti saying, "Welcome to hell," in what used to be the children's ward, sets the tone for how far this place has fallen from its original purpose. The upper floors are standard raider territory with sleeping bags next to surgical equipment they don't understand, and chem labs in operating rooms where life-saving surgeries once happened. But descending to the basement reveals the raiders learn the hard way why you don't keep a Deathclaw as a pet, even if you think you've trained it. The basement is basically a gladiator pit where raiders threw prisoners to fight their tamed Deathclaw for entertainment, except the Deathclaw broke free and now you're dealing with raider corpses torn in half, prisoner corpses still in cages, and one very angry Deathclaw in a confined space with terrible lighting and no room to maneuver. This location shows how the railroad's noble goals get corrupted by the wasteland's harsh reality, turning safe houses into death houses, and finding railroad markers next to raider torture devices drives home how quickly hope dies in the Commonwealth when good people stop fighting for it. Time for some deeply disturbing family therapy. Parsons Asylum. This pre-war mental hospital looks normal from outside except for the heavily armed mercenaries guarding it like they're protecting nuclear launch codes or state secrets, which should be your first red flag that something insane is happening inside. The Cabot family has been using this asylum for over 400 years to contain their patriarch Lorenzo, who found an ancient alien artifact in Arabia before the war that gave him immortality and psychic powers, but also drove him completely insane to the point where he thinks he's a god. Exploring the asylum reveals centuries of failed treatments and experiments, with each generation of Cabots trying desperately to cure or contain Lorenzo while also harvesting his blood for their own immortality serum, creating this twisted family dynamic where they need him alive, but locked up forever. The basement cells are absolutely the worst part, full of failed test subjects who received diluted doses of the serum, and Lorenzo himself behind multiple containment fields, speaking directly into your mind about how his family betrayed him while offering you unlimited power if you free him from his prison. The Secret of Cabot House questline forces you to choose between keeping an insane immortal locked up forever or releasing him to slaughter his ungrateful family who've been living off his blood for centuries. And either choice feels morally wrong because this whole situation is basically 400 years of family dysfunction mixed with alien artifacts that shouldn't exist. We're now at location number 10, and if you've made it this far, you're braver than most. But I need to warn you, this next vault is the one that players report having actual nightmares about, the one that made me personally take a break from playing. Ready? Let's talk about what happens when Vault-Tec experiments on children. Vault 75. Hidden under Malden Middle School, this vault performed genetic experiments on children that make every other vault experiment seem reasonable by comparison. And considering Vault-Tec's track record, that's saying something horrifying. Vault-Tec told desperate parents they were saving their kids from nuclear war, then immediately executed all adults in the entrance chamber and started their Uptopland program, where children competed in increasingly deadly tests, with losers getting harvested for genetic material like they were livestock. The vaults divided into classrooms where kids learned advanced sciences they'd need to rebuild society, training facilities where they competed in combat trials that determined who lived, and research labs where the failures became test subjects for the winners to study and dissect. Terminal entries written by children describe friends disappearing after failing tests, older kids becoming staff and never being seen again, and the horrible realization that graduation meant either becoming a researcher who experiments on younger kids or being killed for your genes because you weren't good enough. The rebellion that finally ended this nightmare experiment left the vault full of small skeletons in lab coats next to adult skeletons in school uniforms, showing these kids fought back but had nowhere to run because they'd never known anything outside the vault, and gunners using it as a base now adds insult to injury because they're desecrating what's essentially a mass child grave. That was it. Vault 75, the location that made Bethesda question if they'd gone too far. But you might think the Commonwealth is bad enough, right? Wrong. What if I told you there's an entire island where radiation literally became a religion, and the followers make Pikmin look sane? Where drinking nuclear waste is considered communion. Pack your rat away, because Bar Harbor is about to show you what happens when the bombs aren't the ending, but the beginning of something worse. The nucleus. This nuclear submarine base turned into a cathedral for the children of Adam combines radiation worship with submarine claustrophobia in the absolute worst possible way that makes you question everyone's sanity, including your own, for entering. The cultists literally drink radioactive water for communion like it's wine, bathe in reactor coolant for blessing from their atomic god, and their leader, High Confessor Tectus, wants to destroy all of Far Harbor with nuclear missiles because peace isn't radioactive enough for his god's plan. Walking through the submarine's cramped corridors while your Geiger counter screams constantly and cultists preach about the holy glow that'll save everyone creates this constant tension between needing to explore for quests and wanting to leave before you grow a third arm or your DNA completely unravels. The reactor room where cultists meditate while absorbing lethal radiation doses that would kill normal humans in seconds, the decontamination arches they've intentionally broken because cleansing is blasphemy, and the nuclear warhead they're literally praying to like it's a shrine makes you realize these people make regular raiders look mentally stable and reasonable. Dima's reveal that he actually helped found this place but abandoned it when they got too extreme for even a synth to handle adds another layer, showing how even artificial intelligence can't predict or understand human insanity, and choosing whether to help them nuke the harbor or stop their atomic crusade affects the entire island's fate forever. From radiation worship to soda pop horror. Pop Factory. This soda factory on Far Harbor's coast seems like a fun place to learn about local soft drink history and maybe grab some unique beverages until you realize it's full of super mutants who've turned the bottling plant into a gore-decorated fortress that smells like death and cola syrup. The factory tour route is still completely operational, cheerfully explaining Vim recipes and company history while you're stepping over mutant kills and dodging suicide bombers in the quality control department who've strapped mini nukes to themselves. The corporate espionage subplot revealed through terminals, where Nuka-Cola was desperately trying to buy out or destroy Vim through sabotage before the bombs, contrasts perfectly with the current situation where mutants are using vintage soda machinery to store body parts like some kind of carbonated morgue. Finding a perfectly preserved suit of T-51 power armor with custom Vim paint job in the mixing room, surrounded by centaur remains and meat bags hanging from conveyor belts, feels like the game saying, here's something cool, but you have to wade through absolute horror to get it, and question if it's worth the therapy you'll need. This location embodies Far Harbor's theme of local pride surviving nuclear war, only to be corrupted by radiation and monsters. And those, Vim. Recipes you can craft afterward taste like accomplishment mixed with PTSD and regret. Remember at the beginning when I mentioned that one location so disturbing that players refuse to go back even with maxed out characters? Well, you're about to see it. Kitty Kingdom, where 200 years of radiation turned childhood wonder into something that'll make you uninstall the game. And the worst part? The music is still playing. Kitty Kingdom. This candy-colored children's park in Nuka World has been pumping radioactive mist for 200 years straight, creating a green fog that hides feral ghouls dressed as clowns and mascots who've been wandering in circles since the bombs fell. Oswald the Outrageous, a glowing one with actual magic tricks thanks to radiation mutations that shouldn't be possible, rules this kingdom believing he's protecting his sleeping friends who are actually feral and will definitely eat your face off without hesitation. The park's attractions still work, but everything's wrong, with the spinning teacups playing distorted music that sounds like screaming, the Ferris wheel creaking with bodies still strapped in their seats, and animatronic characters singing nursery rhymes while you're fighting through 37 rads per second of green death fog that makes you hallucinate. Finding Rachel's holotapes explaining how the staff tried desperately to survive after the bombs, slowly succumbing to what they called the affliction, while Oswald refused to accept they were becoming feral because love makes you blind, creates this tragic story where someone's inability to let go doomed everyone. The Magical Kingdom quest lets you either convince Oswald his friends are gone forever or just shoot him in his stupid glowing face. But either way, clearing this place requires turning off dozens of radiation sprayers while painted ghouls jump out of gift shops wearing mascot costumes, and that final theater showdown where Oswald uses stealth boys and actual magic makes you question if radiation can really do that or if there's something genuinely supernatural happening in this nightmare park. The true genius of Kitty Kingdom is how it corrupts nostalgia itself. Every player has childhood memories of theme parks, and Bethesda weaponized those memories. The development team studied abandoned theme parks like Pripyat's amusement park near Chernobyl and Six Flags New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. They noted how quickly joy becomes horror when the context changes. The Ferris wheel with corpses still strapped in, that's based on a real photo from Pripyat. The distorted music, actual theme park soundtracks played through damaged speakers and slowed down 30%. But the masterstroke is Oswald himself, a character who refuses to let go of the past, just like players refusing to let go of their childhood memories, even as both literally poison everything around them. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every Fallout controversy explained in entertaining detail, click the video on the screen.